Dang, I'm super excited to play this new Monster Hunter game. Man, the Japanese vibe in this game are really strong. I should probably switch the voice language over to Japanese to better experience this. Hey, would you look at that? You can change the text to Japanese as well. I mean, if I spent some time learning Japanese, I could play this game fully in Japanese, and that would be even more immersive, right? I mean, at the end of the day, how hard can learning Japanese really be? So you want to learn Japanese, or maybe you've been studying for a while and you've hit a wall. So you go on YouTube and you look up some videos on how to study Japanese, and you see things like this. Absolutely no hate to these videos. I actually think they have pretty good content, and I regularly watch videos from several of these channels. But I feel they can be a little misleading, at least in their thumbnails and titles. And it's not just these videos. You go to any Japanese forum online and you'll see stories of people talking about how they've been studying Japanese for 6 months and they're reading light novels 5 hours a day with no dictionary, or they're watching Japanese anime with no subtitles and 90% comprehension, or they learn 2,000 kanji in under a year, and Japanese is actually easy, bro. But that's not me at all. So I wanted to offer my story of how an average guy went from zero Japanese to a very average level of intermediate speaking in about 4 years. Now, that may not seem all that impressive when you look online and see all these crazy success stories, but I feel my experience is pretty standard. I'm nowhere near fluent, whatever that means, but I'm at a pretty comfortable speaking level, and albeit slowly, I can play games, read manga, and watch anime, all in Japanese after 4 years of fairly hard self-studying. First off, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Japanese is difficult, especially from the standpoint of an English speaker. This language is difficult. On paper, the steps may seem easy and the path may seem clear, but when it comes down to it, it's hard. At least it is for me. And what these Japanese is easy videos are trying to say is that if you put in a consistent effort over a long period of time, you'll reach your goals. And I 100% agree with that. But what they don't mention is the absolute pain that you have to go through at the early intermediate steps. When you try to immerse where you know a basic amount of vocab and grammar, but nowhere near enough to be able to comprehend this native material. You know all the words in the sentence and most of the grammar, but you just, for some reason, can't make it out. And you start to feel real stupid. That's hard. And it's a really common occurrence. At least it was, and still is for me. It's hard when you've been studying a language for X amount of years and you still make basic mistakes. Forget simple words, forget how to count days versus small things versus cylindrical objects. Or when you forget a kanji during your reviews, so you check the meaning and think you got it, and then the kanji comes back up in your reviews 5 seconds later and you don't got it and you feel like a complete dum-dum. It can be hard to grapple with those feelings and keep your motivation up. Japanese is hard, but doable. I just want to share my experience, as I feel it's a lot more relatable than a lot of those who are already fluent online saying, yo, Japanese is easy, bro. You aren't going to be fluent in 30 days, or a year, or 2 years most likely. Yeah, there are exceptions, but that's not the norm. So today, I want to share my methods of how I got to where I am and to prove that learning Japanese is difficult, but one of the most rewarding things you could do. Hold up. Before we get started, disclaimer, this is not legal advice. This is simply my opinion and what worked for me. It might not work for you. It might be doo-doo advice, but hey, it worked for me, so I want to talk about it. All right, back to the video. Everyone has a reason for wanting to learn Japanese, whether that be anime or manga or Japanese culture or... Oh, yeah, okay, it's anime. At least for 90% of people, anime is going to be the gateway into learning the Japanese language. Okay, let's say you're still a little baby on your Japanese journey. So where do you even start? First, you need to learn the alphabet, or alphabets. All 3 of them. Yep, 3. That means we're learning kanji. But before that, you gotta learn hiragana and katakana. To learn the basics really isn't too hard, and if you put in consistent effort for a few days, you should be able to get the basics down fairly easily. Outside of a few exceptions in katakana. Man, I don't like katakana. But that's a video for another day. Or check out Lazy Fluency's video on the topic. It's got some good info. I highly recommend Tofugu's system for learning the kana, as their mnemonic system can really help it stick. And to really solidify the kana, I recommend being able to write all of them from memory. Being able to recognize them is one thing, but being able to recall them from memory and write them will really help solidify them in your mind. Oh, also, once you get your kana down, no more romaji. No, romaji out. All my homies hate romaji. For real, never use it, ever. I'm watching. All right, you got your kana down, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Time for the big leagues. Okay, so having to learn 2,000 kanji may sound like an impossible task, but it's not as bad as it sounds. Kind of. There's a lot of readings and exceptions. Yeah, it's pretty hard, but worth it. I mean, learning kanji is kind of like climbing a mountain. At first, it may seem really daunting or just flat out impossible. But if you just take it one step at a time, eventually you'll reach the top. Except with kanji, there is no top. It's like a never-ending mountain that just goes on forever, with some goalposts along the way. Regardless, there are ways to reach your goals. And the main thing with kanji is to just start early. Because when it comes to kanji, it's really just a numbers game. As in time. It's going to take a really long time. Like a really long time to learn these things. So it's best to start early. So how do you even go about learning these things? Well, come on, let me show you. First, you're going to want to use an SRS, or a spaced repetition system. Sounds complicated, but really it's just a system for your brain to optimally be able to remember things. I personally use Wanikani for all my kanji study, but it can be kind of expensive, so I also recommend free resources such as Anki. However you choose to learn your kanji, the main thing is to not study them in isolation. And what I mean by that is learning kanji in isolation can feel meaningless, frustrating, and like a waste of time. There's just way too many readings to try to remember every single reading for every single kanji. There's a better way. We want to focus on context. So put most of your time not into studying the individual kanji, but the words that the kanji make up, or even the sentences the kanji are used in. Once you get enough kanji under your belt, something important happens. Immersion becomes survivable. Not easy, not fast, just possible. But more on that later. Oh, also, I wouldn't worry too much about writing kanji, unless it's a specific goal of yours to be able to write the kanji, or it really helps you remember them. I've tried on multiple occasions to drill kanji by writing them, but it was really time consuming, and it really didn't have a huge impact on my ability to recall the kanji after a long writing session. So I gave it up. It's a huge time commitment, and in my opinion, there are much better ways to use your time for studying. But overall, writing, unless you really want to, I just pass. But yeah, start learning kanji ASAP, as it's going to take a really long time. I mean, looking at Wanikani's website, they claim learn 2,000 kanji in just over a year. Yeah, right. That's an absolutely insane pace that almost no one can keep up with. Unless you're waking up at 2 a.m. to do your new batch of reviews. You're not going to get there in a year. For me, I'm approaching year 5 of using Wanikani, and I'm still only on level 53 of 60. So yeah, a year? No. So take it slow and start early. Trust me, your future self will thank you. All right, the next step is immersion. The next step is immersion. The next step is immersion. Yes, immersion is important. arguably the most important step of learning a language. But that being said, I still think it's necessary to get a basic foundation of the language laid down before jumping headfirst into immersion. Crazy, I know. But some people really hate the idea of learning grammar and live and die by the just immerse bro philosophy. But this is my video, and I'm talking about my method. So I'm going to talk about grammar. This is what I recommend. Boom. The big guns. Genki. If you've looked into learning Japanese at all, you've probably heard of it. Yeah, it's not perfect. I mean, no textbook is. But it's popular for a reason. And that popularity means there's so many supplementary resources online to help you through it. The pace that personally worked well for me was to do 1 chapter per week. Yeah, sometimes I'd miss a week, or sometimes I'd get through that chapter faster than a week, and that's okay. Overall, it was a very manageable rhythm alongside the other studying I was doing at the time. Also, try to do all the exercises, especially the ones that require writing. Trying to express your thoughts with the limited amount of Japanese you learn, I feel, is really valuable at these early stages. It forces you to engage with the grammar in a way the passive learning just can't. Also, again, no romaji. No romaji. I'm serious. Get it out of there. I do find the vocab pacing in Genki to be kind of mid, so I just focus on learning the vocab as I mentioned before with your SRS. After Genki 1, I also recommend working through Genki 2. And if you keep up that about 1 chapter a week pace, you're looking at about a 6-month Japanese language learning adventure. Woohoo! Side note, if you do get stuck on anything in the Genki books, I highly recommend Tokini Andy's YouTube channel. He's got dedicated videos for every bit of grammar in the Genki books. Alongside Genki, I also use a few other grammar resources like Tai Kim's Guide and 80/20 Japanese. Not because you need to, but sometimes hearing the same grammar point explained in a different way can really help it click. Okay, I'm here to defend myself again with Genki. A lot of people online hate Genki. I get it. Genki kinda sucks, but it's not bad either, and you're gonna learn your grammar. It worked for me. But if you really don't want to use Genki, use something else. Find something that works for you. Whether it be Genki, Minna no Nihongo, Tai Kim's Guide, 80/20 Japanese, or if you'd rather use a website service, check out BoomPro. Or if you'd rather watch a video series, watch Kier Dolly. She explains the grammar in a completely different way that clicks with a lot of people. Give it a try, find what works for you, and learn your grammar. It's important. Alright, back to the video. And once I had that basic foundation, grammar study slowly became less of a main focus and more of a support system. As I ran into patterns I didn't understand during immersion, I looked them up, referenced them, and move on. Alright, speaking of immersion, let's get into the meat and potatoes. Stupid joke. Okay, so to be able to understand Japanese, you're going to need a lot of input. Like, I mean a lot. There are tons and tons of videos out there on how to immerse, so I'll just talk about some of the tools I used. So when you first start out immersing, you aren't going to understand anything. Is what everyone says, but it don't have to be like that. Again, take those first few months to really lock down the grammar and some vocab before jumping headfirst into immersion. However, during those first few months, I still recommend doing some passive listening while you're studying to begin getting used to the sounds and rhythms of the language. Don't worry about trying to understand anything. Just let it wash over you. Only once you have some vocab and grammar under your belt do I recommend really jumping into immersion. First up, we got reading. Reading is hard. Like, really hard. Did I mention it's hard yet? This language is hard, man. But it's also one of the best resources you got once you get past the beginner stage. If you're reading on a computer, a pop-up dictionary is going to become your best friend. There are a bunch of options out there, but I mainly use Tenten and Yomitan. They're really easy to set up, really convenient, and kind of essential if you don't want to lose your mind when you first start out reading. When you first start out with reading, I recommend looking at some graded readers. Taroku Graded Readers is a great free resource to get started with. They're stories designed to let you actually finish them, which can be a huge motivation bump. Once reading starts to become a little less terrifying, I highly recommend Satori Reader. It's a collection of short stories written specifically for Japanese learners to bridge that gap from study materials to real native material. What makes it so useful is that everything's supported. You got vocab lookups, grammar explanations, and you can link your Wanikani account in which it'll hide all the furigana of the kanji you've studied, which is a great way to reinforce the kanji you've been studying over at Wanikani. Overall, it's a really great service. Not sponsored. Yet. Eventually, though, the time will come when you have to move on to real native material. And when I say it's time, what I really mean is you're not ready. And you'll never be ready. But that's okay. Native material is hard, and there's no smooth transition. But there's also really no way around it without just jumping in. I recommend starting with things aimed at a younger audience, or light novels if you're into that. The most important thing is finding something you actually care about, and just going for it. Yeah, it's going to be slow, and painful, and hard. It'll feel like you're looking up every other word in every sentence, but it gets easier, I promise, so stick with it. Online book clubs are also incredibly helpful here. You got vocab lists, shared questions, and just knowing that other language learners are struggling with the same things you are can really help with motivation. Those communities are honestly invaluable. And once you get past that beginner, painful stage of reading, it becomes a lot more enjoyable. I also love how physically small Japanese novels are. I can just throw one in my pocket and read it on the train or while I'm waiting somewhere. And of course, don't be afraid to read manga if that's your thing. The visuals help a lot with understanding who's talking and what's happening. And most manga has full furigana, which can be a blessing and a curse. The difficulty can vary widely, and the Japanese can get very non-standard very fast, so proceed with caution. I also found OCR tools pretty unreliable with manga, since furigana tends to break everything, so you end up doing a lot of manual lookups instead of easy pop-ups. Still, it's absolutely a valid and useful way to practice reading. Manga. Beyond books, the immersion I found the most enjoyable was actually video games. Man, I love video games. And I've always wanted to play some of my favorite games in their native language. That's Japanese. So I use that as a motivator to help me immerse and continue learning. Games are great because they can offer intense reading practice and listening practice, as well as having great gameplay to boot. I mean, that's going to keep you studying much more than any textbook can. There's so much to get into when talking about learning Japanese with games, and honestly, I'd like to make a whole video on that very topic. So for now, I'll keep this brief. If you're going to immerse with video games, which I recommend, I'd start with a game with a lot of text, or a game you've played before. If you can, try to play the game on your PC so you can use an on-screen text grabber like Yomi Ninja or Game to Text. Even though I like the real deal. Those tools are very valuable. You can use the text grabbers with your pop-up dictionary, and you can easily make SRS cards to drill that vocab, but more on that later. If you do have an interest in learning Japanese with games, I highly recommend the YouTube channel Game Gengo. He's got a wealth of videos on this very topic, and it's great stuff. Nothing beats sitting down in front of a CRT and booting up an old game console and playing some of your favorite games. And you can learn Japanese at the same time. I mean, what more could you ask for, really? Games are great. I don't know what to talk about. I guess that's it. All right, next on the list, a listening immersion. First off, we got old reliable podcasts. Podcasts are going to be your best friend. Whenever you got time, just pop in some earbuds and start listening. As often as you can, listen, listen, listen. Both passive and active listening are really important, so make sure to carve out time for both. I like to listen to podcasts while I commute to and from work, which adds up to about 4 free hours of listening input a week, baby. I'm actually driving home from work right now. I probably should be listening to a podcast. Anyways, there's a plethora of really high-quality podcasts for you to choose from. I'll leave some of my recommendations down in the description below, based on your level. The main thing is finding a podcast that challenges you, but you can still follow along with reasonably well. If you're anything like me, when you listen to podcasts, you'll often find yourself zoning out. But that's okay. The main thing is just realize that it's happening and lock back in. Now, listening immersion is a crucial step to getting anywhere near good at this language. And it gets easier once you start incorporating listening into your daily routine. Doing laundry? Podcast. Working out? Podcast. Washing the dishes? Podcast. Watching YouTube videos in English when you should be immersing while you eat your lunch? Podcast. First date? Podcast. Getting robbed? Hey, I'm robbing you. Oh, I can't hear you. I said I'm robbing you. Give me all your money. No thanks, I can't hear you. I'm getting my comprehensible input. Believe it or not, podcast. Okay, maybe not those last two, but you get my point. Getting Japanese into your daily life as much as possible is going to make a huge difference in the long run. Consistency is going to matter way more than intensity, especially at these early stages. Alright, moving on. Next up, audiobooks. I know these can offer great results, but I personally haven't used them as a primary input method yet. But that being said, if it works for you, go for it. I will say as a beginner, this may be pretty tough to break into, but if you're able to find good comprehensible input for your level, go for it. It's going to do wonders for you. A lot of people recommend using YouTube as an immersion method. And yeah, it can work. I tried it. I even went out of my way to try and find some Japanese YouTube channels that I was interested in. But Japanese YouTube is very different from Western YouTube. And I personally struggle to find any content I could really connect with. A lot of the niches I actually enjoyed tended to use grammar way above my level, which made it hard to break into early on. And the stuff that was accessible, like vlogs, was great for listening practice, but beyond that, I never looked forward to watching them. So while I still occasionally use YouTube for immersion practice, it's never been my main source of input. I've always gravitated more towards games and reading and other forms of content I actually enjoy. That being said, there are a lot of very high quality, good resources on YouTube to help with your immersion practice. I'll throw some in the description, so check them out. All right, I hear you. It's time to talk about anime. It's like the meme, right? Why everyone wants to learn Japanese. I want to watch anime without subtitles. Okay, bud, calm down. I get it. I've been there. It's a great, idealistic goal to imagine yourself sitting down and watching your favorite anime without the subtitles turned on. And honestly, that's a great goal, but be warned, there's many long steps to take before you get there. That being said, using anime is a great method to learn this language, if used properly. You can't simply just plop down on your couch and watch endless hours of anime and expect to make huge gains. To really maximize your anime learning, you're going to want to move over to your computer. Now, to keep this brief, as there are plenty of videos online documenting how to do this, first, you're just going to want to pick an anime with relatively easy grammar and vocab. Next, get your pop-up dictionary ready to go and start watching. As you come across words you don't know, look them up with your pop-up dictionary. Ideally, take those words and add them to your SRS deck so you can study them later. Lately, I've been using Migaku, which is a great one-click solution to get the words from the anime into an SRS deck. Again, not sponsored. But if you want to go the free route, you can use Yomi-chan and link it to your Anki account. That way, you can take the words from Yomi-chan and put them right into your Anki deck. I'll link a video in the description on how to get that set up. Alright, I want to get back to watching my anime. Now, you'll often hear this if you read any online discourse about learning Japanese with anime. If you learn Japanese using anime, you're going to sound like an anime character. That's not real Japanese. And yeah, it's true that there are ways of speaking Japanese that sound very anime-y and appear frequently when watching anime, but in my opinion, the issue is just way overblown. Even if you have a somewhat decent understanding of Japanese, it's very easy to pick out those different ways of speaking and to not let it affect your output. On top of that, if you watch more slice-of-life-esque animes, which is great for building your conversational level of Japanese speaking, most characters are going to be speaking fairly standard Japanese, which kind of makes this point mute. Of course, you're not going to want to run around talking to Japanese strangers like Zoro, but I feel like that's a pretty easy issue to avoid. Okay, that's enough anime. Next. Output is so important in my opinion, and it's something I avoided in my first year of learning this language, as I was just too nervous or too afraid of making mistakes to say anything in Japanese. But you gotta do it. Making mistakes is how we learn. Some people will just say immerse. Don't worry about output till way down the line. And although that can work for some people, for me, I think outputting early on is really good. Everyone's different and it depends on your goals, but hey, this is my video about how I learned, so let's get into it. How to output. Early on, output doesn't mean necessarily having full conversation with native Japanese speakers. If you're studying grammar with a textbook, you're already doing some output in the form of the workbook exercises. Another really simple method is just keeping a simple, short, daily diary in Japanese. It doesn't need to be a full blog post you're writing. Just 1 or 2 sentences a day is a great way to build a habit to output Japanese early on. Don't worry about making mistakes. Just try to do it every day. For me personally, the biggest jump occurred when I was forced to speak Japanese. I spent about a year studying solo, too nervous to speak to anyone, before I took my first trip to Japan. 京都で2ヶ月ぐらい語学学校に通っていました。文法は大体知っていたんですけど、毎日使わないといけない環境にいたおかげで、今までバラバラだった知識が一気につながった感じがしました。もちろんまだ全然完璧じゃないんですけど、終わる頃にはかなり自信がつきました。なんというか、being reborn その時の話は結構いろいろあるので、また今度の動画で話したいと思います。Now, obviously, not everyone can do an immersion stay in Japan, and that's fine. Depending on where you live, there may be some local language exchanges or cultural groups you can join. If not, there are still plenty of ways you can practice your output consistently from your own home. HelloTalk, you may have heard of it. It's basically a language exchange app where you can help each other learn your native language. Or you can join voice call groups or do one-on-one calls with native speakers. Yeah, not a perfect app by any means, but if you stick with it and give it the old college try, you can make some really meaningful connections. I went all the way to Aomori to meet one of the friends I met on that app. Be warned, do watch out for spam and creepers, especially if you're a lady. Anyways, let's move on. Alright, VR chat. You got no excuses on this one. Despite the title having VR in it, you don't need a VR headset to play the game. It's a game available on PC, Android, iPhone, anything you got. You can use it to hop into public chat rooms and start talking with natives, just like that. The chat rooms include both language learners and natives, so you can get a nice mix of speaking with natives and other Japanese learners. I know plenty of people that have used VR chat as their primary language output and have made great strides with it. As for me, I've used it several times, but never as a primary source. I was always too nervous to try talking in the groups, not necessarily because of being nervous to speak Japanese, but just breaking into a group of strangers and talking is nervous in general, and then on top of it being Japanese makes it a little more difficult. But hey, if you can get past that initial hump of embarrassment, it can be a really useful tool, so I recommend checking it out. Okay, I got a couple more tips on how to practice outputting Japanese. First one, just narrate your day. As you go about your everyday life, just narrate whatever you're doing in your head in Japanese. Doesn't matter what your level is, just use the grammar and vocab you studied up until that point to try to explain what you're doing in Japanese. Now, the main thing here is to not be afraid to make mistakes and just get used to expressing your own original thoughts in Japanese. This will really go a long way when eventually you try having a conversation and you've got some practice under your belt. Okay, number 2, try shadowing. Now, this one's a little bit more involved. As you're listening to your native material, just try to repeat back what you're hearing out loud in Japanese. Now, at first, I'll be honest, this is pretty tricky. But as you do it more and more, it'll become easier and you'll get used to it. You'll start to internalize the natural flow and rhythm of Japanese, and it'll really help you sound a lot more natural when eventually you start having conversations with people, if that's one of your goals. So yeah, give it a try. Even with all this input and output, I still recommend some dedicated grammar study as you progress through your language learning. It's less critical than at the N5 and N4 stages, but I still recommend intentionally studying grammar through at least N3. After finishing Genki 1 and Genki 2, I use Bunpro to continue my grammar studies. It's affordable, and if you stay consistent, you can get through N3 pretty quickly. You can also just use the app for free to look up any of the grammar points, which is what I'm currently doing. And the real benefit is, as you continue your immersion, you can use Bunpro in tandem to really reinforce that grammar. Personally, I like having clear explanations for the grammar when I'm learning specific points, rather relying fully on context through immersion. But hey, that's just my personal opinion. Past the N3 level, I've been using the Shinkansen master books to help prepare me for the JLPT N2 test this summer. But unless you're planning on taking the JLPT specifically, I probably wouldn't recommend these books, as they're extremely test-focused and dive deep into some of these grammatical nuances that don't really matter for everyday conversation. However, as far as test preparation goes, definitely recommend them, especially the reading and grammar one. These ones are great. Okay, before wrapping this up, I want to touch on a few things I wouldn't recommend for learning Japanese. Now, I've used plenty of different resources to learn Japanese, and although you can learn from any method, let me tell you, they ain't all created equal. And again, this is just my opinion, so just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for you. Alright, first up on the list, we all know it, Duolingo. It just ain't it, brother. And this is coming from a guy who had a 1,000-day streak.
Oh my God!
Embarrassing, I know, but I mean, if you really want to use it, just use it to learn hiragana and katakana and get out of there. Ditch it. Run for the hills. I mean, it has some positives, but there are just so many ways to make better use of your time. Now, another service to look out for is Pimsleur. Now, don't get me wrong, Pimsleur has its place, and it can be very effective to get you to a basic level of Japanese speaking fairly quickly. But beyond that, I just don't see it being all that useful in the long term. Now again, if your main goal is to just get some Japanese phrases locked in before your trip to Japan, it's great for that. Not to mention, its pricing model is pretty egregious. Again, it's got its benefits, but for serious, intermediate, long-term learners, I'd probably steer clear. Another service that I tried that I didn't really click with was Rocket Languages. Now again, like Pimsleur, it's got its use cases and benefits, but for me, the lesson structure just didn't mesh with my learning style. Not to mention that the audio lessons were paced in such a way that it was almost unlistenable for me. And again, the pricing structure on that one is kind of rough, so works for you, that's great. But for me, yeah, I'd probably steer clear.
Learning Japanese is a journey, and a hard one, and one I'm very much still in the middle of. And honestly, I don't see that ending anytime soon. And I don't know if I want it to. Learning a language is a lifelong endeavor, and the road can be tough at times, especially at the beginning. But that's also what makes it so worth it. I mean, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? Along the way, Japanese has given me things I could have never planned for. I spent 2 months learning Japanese in Kyoto. I've made close friends through this language, some of which who even flew all the way to Minnesota to just hang out with me. Eventually, it led me to moving to Japan. Heck, even my girlfriend is Japanese. None of this was the goal when I first started learning the language, but it all happened because I stuck with it. The connections you make through a language, whether online or in person, just aren't something you can replicate without it. Being able to really immerse yourself in a culture, not as a tourist, but as a participant, is a completely different experience. Japanese is difficult. There's no way around it. But it opened doors for me I never knew existed, and that's what made all those long, hard days worth it. There'll be days where it feels like a waste of time, or you're not improving, or you'll never get there. I've had plenty of those days. Man, I still do. But if there's one thing I've learned, although cliche, learning to enjoy the process matters way more than obsessing over some distant end goal. I want to share my experience as someone who's very average at learning this language, who got to a very average level in a very average amount of time.
No fluent in 6 months. No Japanese is easy. Japanese is hard, and it's a serious commitment, but it's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever stuck with. If there's one takeaway from this video, it's this. Just because you're going slow doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Progress is progress, and you will improve. Don't give up. Keep trudging along, and someday you will reach your goals. Someday you'll look back at your little baby learner self, and only then will you realize just how far you've come. Learn to appreciate the little wins, and know you are making progress, even if it doesn't feel like it. I barely scratched the surface on a lot of these topics, and I'd like to make more videos diving into immersion, gaming, output, all these things about Japanese. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, stick around. Thanks for watching, and good luck on your language studies. You got this.
On top of that, if you do have an interest in learning games through Jap...
What am I talking about?
mama.
Learning kanji is kind of like learning kanji is kind of like climbing a mountain. I have to not slouch, stand up straight, and not look like an idiot. That's a lot of things to remember. I always look like an idiot. Comprehensible input. I don't have my mic on. Shit. Oh my. Ooh, that's a large bee. Ooh.